The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline.
What's up, everybody? Saturday night, Existential Crisis Hotline. And I got some stuff for tonight. I got all my ideas this morning while talking with Katie over some coffee. So we'll get into that. But I'm so fascinated by this. Well, maybe I should explain some context. So I'm reading Memoirs of My Nervous Illness by Daniel Paul Schraber. And we had found out about that book from reading, I don't know if you can hear that, some frogs or something. We had, at least I'm assuming you can hear that. That's not just in my head, right? You guys can hear the frogs? We had found out about this book from the Deleuze and Guattari, Anti-Oedipus. And they had mentioned him as sort of a classic case study that Freud used in developing psychoanalysis, and apparently like a lot of people have used this work. And basically it's this guy who was a lawyer and then a judge in Germany in the 1800s, and basically his mind collapsed. I think his wife died. I think that's what it was. And when he was 42, and got better, then got worse, then got better, and eventually just ended up, I think, dying in a mental asylum. But in a period of lucidity, he wrote this memoir describing his experiences, but mostly like his experiences, but then also sort of his theories, which they call delusional. And I don't know, maybe they are delusional, but it's interesting because as I'm looking at it, I'm like, why is this person delusional? Or why are the ideas that he had delusional? And yet some ideas that are also just as wacky and crazy not considered delusional. Like, why is it that we as a world basically accept Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, you name it, as non-delusional? And I mean, yeah, some people might say it's delusional, but as a whole, in our world, they're kind of accepted. It's like a mainstream idea. But it's just as crazy. It's just as crazy. Except for the fact, I guess, that you can believe in mainstream religions and still go to work. It fits into the system. Obviously, this guy could not continue going to work. He went crazy. But I wanted to read a little bit because, man, it's so good. I read the introduction by the translator, I suppose. I don't know. Is she the translator? I'm assuming so. And there was some really interesting biographical stuff in here. There's one point that stood out in particular. Like even in the beginning, it says, Schreber himself believed his book to have a message for the world, not only to expose the nature of the illness he had suffered, but, more importantly for him, to pass on some kind of cloudy divine revelation. For the writing comes straight from the borderline between sanity and madness. So he put this book together when he was like in a period where he was kind of lucid. And he basically made notes and random scribblings and so forth. Not Cy Twombly scribblings, but, words, actual words, not just loops. And then I think when he was in a period of lucidity, he kind of took all that and wrote everything down. But I want to read this biographical part. His father was named Moritz Schreiber. It says Moritz Schreiber was in fact hugely influential. As late as 1930s, German children... Oh, wait, actually, let me see if there's more context there. No. German children were being threatened with the Schreiber Geraldehalter, a contraption of boards and straps if they did not sit up straight. He had a system and a manual for everything. Oh, actually, yeah, I knew there was more context. In recent times, Schreiber has been discussed particularly in relation to the writings of his father, a renowned German authority on child rearing. So that's the context for his father. He was like a renowned authority in Germany on child rearing. Okay, so as late as the 1930s, German children were being threatened with the Schreiber Geraldehalter, so some contraption that this guy's father had come up with. A contraption of boards and straps if they did not sit up straight. He had a system and a manual for everything: the cold water health system, the system to cure harmful body habits, indoor gymnastics systems for health preservation, outdoor play systems, the lifelong systematic diet guide. But of his two sons, one committed suicide and one, Paul, the author of the memoirs, went mad. Moritz himself entered a deep and isolating depression 10 years before his death, and while Paul was still in his teens. So that was like the child rearing expert in Germany. Paul Schreiber was born in 1842 and grew up to become a lawyer and then a judge. He married, but the couple had stillbirths and miscarriages and no surviving children. His first breakdown came when he was 42. He recovered well from it until 1893, when at the age of 51 he lapsed disastrously again and disappeared into the hospital, voluntarily at first for 9 years. The memoirs were written while he was in Sonnenstein Public Asylum as an account of what he believed were his unique experiences and as a plea for release. His wife had an incapacitating stroke, and then he basically remained from that point until his death, this guy, in 1911 in the asylum. Speaks only very rarely with the doctor, his hospital records noted, and then only that he is being tortured with the food that he cannot eat, etc., continually under the tormenting influence of his hallucinations. Sleep at night, mostly poor, moans, stands in beds, stands rigidly in front of the window with eyes closed, an expression of listening on his face. From time to time, the tragic patient would scribble words on scraps of paper: miracles, tomb, not eat. His wish had been that, when my last hour finally strikes, I will no longer find myself in an asylum, but in an orderly domestic life surrounded by my near relatives, as I may need more loving care than I could get in an asylum. Then they kind of talked about Freud's basic analysis of the point, even though he never met him. And then the authors kind of, or the translators kind of giving some sort of a little bit of their own analysis. It says, in much of the delusional world that Paul Schreiber describes in the memoirs, if much of the delusional world that Paul Schreiber describes in the memoirs reflects the real world around him, behind that we can see the structure of his upbringing within the Moritz Schreiber childcare system. As expounded in Moritz's 30-odd books, this was indeed sinister. Suppression, control, total obedience are the keynotes. The child's, so this is kind of more like giving Moritz, the father's, ideas of children. The child's crude nature and ignoble parts are to be erased at all costs. Obedience must be blind. The idea should never cross the child's mind that his will might prevail. Even babies conform. Respected, threatening gestures will be enough to silence them. Some of the books are illustrated by pictures of special equipment, which certainly seems not unlike that used in the asylum by Flechsig. Flechsig was the guy who was basically the doctor overseeing Schreber's case. The head holder, the bed straps, the chin band, and of course the Geralda There are certainly some references in the books to loving attitudes, occasional playing together and joking together, but one feels that the joking together of the Schreber family may have held a certain grim quality. And I think this part's interesting too. The capricious, punitive God of Schreber's delusionary world does seem made in the image of his father. God, like the paterfamilias of the childcare manuals, did not really understand the living human being, and had no need to understand him, because according to the order of the world, he dealt only with corpses. This has run like a red thread through my entire life. Moritz Schreber, in effect, forsook his son too, by withdrawing into depression and then by dying so early. Let's see what else. This is from Freud. They put this quote here in Freud because it was like let's see. Maybe I'll just read this part. Schreber's identity underwent startling changes. These are reminiscent of William James's description of self-fragmentation during insanity in his Principles of Psychology. One patient has another self that repeats all his thoughts for him. Another has two bodies lying in different beds. Some patients feel as if they had lost parts of their bodies, teeth, brains, stomach, etc. In some it is made of wood, glass, butter, etc. Attempts were also made, says Schreber, to falsify my mental individuality in all sorts of ways. He was put into an inferior body, had to share his skull with other souls, acquired a profusion of heads. Fleisig's and Weber's souls insinuated themselves into his body. Those are the two doctors that oversaw his cases. The inside of his skull was even lined with a foreign membrane so that he should forget who he was. Innumerable tortures were inflicted. The compression of the chest miracle, which Schatzman and others have linked with the wearing of the Geralda. The head compression machine, the stealing of his stomach, the invasion of the lung worm. I guess these are all references to the memoirs. He was not allowed to sit, lie, or stand. Rays did not seem to appreciate all that a human being who actually exists must be somewhere. Or they did not appreciate that at all. At another time, he says poison was injected into him, even though the voices had told him that if he must be forsaken, he should be forsaken with a pure body. Sometimes the voices said things that sound as if they came from Schreber or his father. Do not think about certain parts of your body. A job started must be finished. Sometimes, as when Virginia Woolf heard the birds outside speaking in Greek, the voices put themselves into birds who called out, "Are you not ashamed?" when he fed them. We'll come back to feeding birds in a little bit. Are you not ashamed? Wow, that's such a weird coincidence. It'll make sense when I show you the next part that I had planned. Freud, in his paper on Schreber, did not investigate the mystery of voices. Let me say that again. Freud, in his paper on Schreber, did not investigate the mystery of voices. How it is that speech, presumably speech from the patient's mind, appears so forcibly to come from outside. Along with Socrates and Joan of Arc, Freud had in fact experienced this himself. And this is interesting because if you read Prometheus and Atlas from Jason Giorgiani, he explains like Freud actually was very interested in paranormal type stuff. Not that this is per se paranormal, but he was actually interested in paranormal stuff, but he kind of suppressed it, and he was like kind of warned or suggested that he should kind of leave it out of his psychoanalytic stuff because people wouldn't take psychoanalysis as seriously. But he was very interested in the unconscious as like a realm of, or a source of paranormal type stuff. Anyways, he described, so Freud describes it in an early paper, his experience of hearing voices. This is from Freud. This is really interesting. I remember having twice been in danger of my life, and each time the awareness of the danger occurred to me quite suddenly. On both occasions I felt, quote, this was the end. And while otherwise my inner language proceeded with only indistinct sound images and slight lip movements, in these situations of danger I heard the words as if somebody was shouting them into my ear, and at the same time I saw them as if they were printed on a piece of paper floating in the air. That's Freud. That's really interesting. Let me see what else. He wrote this introduction to the memoir. And it's not really an introduction. It says, Open Letter to Professor Fleixig. It's so... And he's kind of writing it as an intro. I'll just read the first part. It says, Dear Professor, I take the liberty of enclosing a copy of my Memoirs of a Patient Suffering from a Nervous Illness, which I have written and beg you to examine in a kindly spirit. You will find your name mentioned frequently, particularly in the first chapter, partly in connection with circumstances which might be painful to you. I very much regret this, but unfortunately cannot make any changes without, from the very outset, precluding making myself understood. In any case, it is far from me to attack your honor, as indeed I do not harbor any personal grievance against any person. My aim is solely to further knowledge of truth in a vital field, that of religion. So he was very, much trying to write a religious treatise. It wasn't just like, oh, I went crazy and let me tell you about how I went crazy. It's like he knew he went crazy, but at the same time he was like, I realized some things and I really want people to understand these things. I am absolutely certain that in this regard I command experiences which when generally acknowledged as valid, will act fruitfully to the highest possible degree among the rest of mankind. Equally, I have no doubt that your name plays an essential role in the genetic development of the circumstances in question, and that certain nerves taken from your nervous system became tested souls in the sense described in Chapter 1 of the Memoirs, and in this capacity achieved supernatural power by means of which they have for years exerted a damaging influence on me and still to this day. So he's writing this memoir and sending it to this guy to try to get out of the mental asylum, and he's like, I don't want you to think I think anything bad of you. I just had to explain some of the things that happened because, basically all this supernatural stuff is going on. And it's like, you're not helping your case, dude. But it's interesting because at the end of this, it's only a few pages, but at the end, he says, I need hardly mention of what immeasurable importance it would be if you would in any way confirm the surmises I have sketched above, all the more if they could be substantiated in recollections of your earlier years retained in your memory. The rest of my thesis would thereby gain universal credence and would immediately be regarded as a serious scientific problem to be investigated in every possible way. I beg you, therefore, my dear sir, I might almost say I implore you to state without reservation, and he has 3 points. Whether during my stay in your asylum, you maintained a hypnotic or similar contact with me in such a way that even when separated in space, you exerted an influence on my nervous system. 2. Whether you thus witnessed in any way communications from voices originating elsewhere, indicating supernatural origin. Finally, 3. Whether during my time in your asylum, you yourself also received visions or vision-like impressions, particularly in dreams, which dealt, amongst others, with the almighty power of God and human freedom of will, unmanning, loss of states of blessedness, my relations and my friends, as well as yours, particularly Daniel Fleixig, named in Chapter 6. I hasten to add that from the numerous communications I received from the voices that talked to me at that time, I have the most weighty indications that you yourself had similar visions. And he goes on for a bit. But I just thought it was interesting because I'm like, dude, what if there really was something going on and really these voices were talking to him and like the doctor was also part of it and he was getting visions, but like he didn't want to say anything. That would be so crazy. But yeah, it's interesting. I haven't finished. I mean, I just started reading it, but it's really interesting. Really fascinating. Okay, so Patient Zero in the deadly hantavirus cruise ship outbreak was a Dutch ornithologist. So apparently, this is the story, anyways. This Dutch ornithologist, which is like basically a professional bird watcher, I suppose. And he, at one of the stops at the cruise, or one of the stops on the cruise, he went to this apparently he went to this landfill because there was a spot that had like birds. And I guess the theory is that perhaps he got either bit by a rat, or maybe there was just rat feces everywhere, because that's apparently how this virus is transmitted. And so because he went to this landfill to look at birds, he was in that environment, and maybe it made him sick. And that's why I was thinking it was funny when he was like watching these birds, where they like shouting to him, "Are you not ashamed? Look at what you have done to the earth." But I thought this comment was funny. Somebody said, "I almost felt sorry for them, but then I read this part. The spot, overrun with trash, is avoided like the plague by its residents, but serves as a pilgrimage point for bird watchers from all over the world." And she said, "Why would you make a beeline for a place residents avoid?" I said, "To watch birds." But then, I was talking to Katie about that, and it just got us thinking, like even the residents avoid this place. Like, how dare you go to the landfill and make everyone sick? The thing is, and it's weird, and I just looking at that as like sort of a weird irony of like the landfill, a spot where we throw out all their trash, and that made him sick. And it's like we're literally just throwing trash away on the ground in big dumps, and it's like this weird way of, like, that woman's comment of like just ignoring the negative in this world. Not that we should all go hang out in dumps, but when I went to South Africa back in 2010, we would go to the dump, we would go to the landfill, and there was this one time that the spot we would normally dump stuff at, it was like a landfill run by the city, and it was this big place. Anyways, we would go to this one spot normally where you would dump it, and they'd have like tractors, and they would scoop it up, and I don't know what they would do with it, but this one time that part was closed, so we had to like go further back into the landfill, and we like went up on this like trash mountain basically. And so there's all these people there throwing out their stuff. And I was looking around, and then I saw like these kids up on top of the landfill, and this was like a mountain. Not like a mountain like that, like a big hill, right, full of trash, just like compacted trash. And I saw these kids, and I was like, what the hell are these kids doing up here? And it's like, I remember going to Tulum when we went on a trip one time to Mexico, and we went and visited the ruins, the Mayan ruins, or Aztec, I don't know what, Aztec ruins. They're like these like temples or something. And when you get there, it's like they're all just like these gray, weathered stone buildings. And I remember noticing an iguana on one of the buildings. I was like, oh, cool, look, an iguana. And as soon as I noticed it, because it was like camouflaged into the building, like it wasn't the normal green color. I don't know if they changed colors or what, but they were like, looked like the same color as the building. And as soon as I noticed one, then I noticed another and another. And then I realized like they were everywhere. Like the building was just like covered in iguanas. I was like, what the hell? Like you just don't notice them at first. It was weird. But it was like that with the landfill. It's like I just didn't notice at first, and I saw like a couple kids playing on top of the landfill, and then I started seeing people everywhere, like children, adults, these like structures made out of scraps of trash, like almost like little houses. And I was like, oh shit, I think these people live here. And yeah, I was just looking at that of like, why would you go to this place that everyone avoids? I'm like, some people actually live in landfills. Katie sent me this video from Instagram. That's very loud. Why are you always at the landfill? Like picking through the... Damn, look at that. That's crazy. It's all just clothing being thrown away. Wow. It's easy to be like, look at the amazing things of capitalism and our system and so forth, because I have an iPhone and a computer and electricity, but then it's because you don't see the negative. It's not in your environment. You don't see it. I found this video. 3 minutes. Let's see what this is. The road to Juan's house.
There is no sidewalk. There is no playground with green grass. There is nothing but trash, because the road to Juan's house leads to a garbage dump. Juan Bocanegra has known the Tutitlán garbage dump all his life. He was born here, as were his brothers and sisters. His parents make their living from the garbage. Like others who struggle with poverty in Mexico, they have no education, no training, and no skills to find a job. So each day, they search for recyclables. For 12 hours a day, these people labor under the hot sun, picking through the garbage for cans and plastic. They look for anything to sell so they can feed their families, but they make less than $1 a day. So even the children go to work alongside their parents. Amidst the trash, this young girl has found some tortillas. Her family is so poor, the tortillas will become part of tonight's dinner. What was food for the dogs and flies becomes food for the family. While his mother and father toil in the dump, Juan and his brother and sisters must fend for themselves. Approaching Juan's house is a stark reminder of the place where the Bocanegra family makes their living. It's a flimsy shack made from the very garbage they scavenge through each day. Inside, hundreds of flies crawl over the family's noontime meal that was scavenged from the garbage the day before. The children eat it, however, knowing it may be the only meal they have for the rest of the day. But the lack of healthy food is not the only problem these children face.
These children are at a great risk to contract disease in this environment. Because there's no toilet, they relieve themselves outside of their shacks. To make matters worse, they have no place to take a bath.
However disturbing it is to see children face such hardship, for Juan, this is the only way of life he has ever known. Growing into adulthood, Juan may continue in the same cycle of poverty that has beset his family for generations. Without education or training, Juan's only fate is to carry on the family trade of picking through the trash. But down the road from Juan's house, a new community center brings hope to his family's future. Each morning, Juan and hundreds of children from the dump community come to the Tutitlán Community Center for a nutritious hot breakfast. Built by Northwest Medical Teams, the community center now serves more than 45,000 breakfasts each year. The children devour eggs, meat, vegetables, and bread, knowing that this may be the only meal they eat that day. In addition to these nutritious meals, Northwest Medical Teams believes that education and skills training is the key to unlocking a child's future. Juan takes his literacy classes seriously. He knows he is privileged to be the first in his family to learn to read and write.
The teachers in the literacy class have created a new mentality in my son. He now has a very open mind and is willing to learn. He wants to improve himself.
As he excels in his reading, writing, and math skills, Juan hopes that his education will help him get a job and leave the dump when he gets older.
Though he is young, he already knows more than I do. I hope he takes this education and makes good choices for his future.
Wow.
Oh, garbage dump, oh, garbage dump. Why are you called a garbage dump? Oh, garbage dump, oh, garbage dump. Why are you called a garbage dump? You could feed the world with my garbage dump. You could feed the world with my garbage dump. You could feed the world with my garbage dump. That sums it up in one big lump. When you're living on the road and you think sometimes you're starving, get on off that trip, my friend. Just get in them cans and start carving. Oh, garbage dump, my garbage dump. Why are you called my garbage dump? Garbage dump, my garbage dump. Why are you called my garbage dump? There's a market basket and an AMP. I don't care if the box boys are standing me. I don't even care who wins the war. I'll be in them cans behind my favorite store. Garbage dump, oh, garbage dump. Why are you called a garbage dump? Garbage dump, oh, garbage dump. That sums it up in one big lump. I claim all these garbage dumps in the name of the garbage pickers. Garbage pickers of America.
I can see why the CIA took him out, man. It kind of reminds me of that old saying, one man's garbage dump is another man's garbage dump. Yeah, I just thought that was weird. I remember that from some random thing that I heard about one time. Okay. Speaking of garbage, I remember noticing this when we were looking the other night at that, what was his name? Adolph Wolfli, that schizophrenic guy who was making art. And he had this weird random, I don't know what this is, weird scribblings, a picture of a woman, and then Campbell's soup. And somehow, I don't remember how this got brought up, but I was talking with Katie this morning, and she brought it up, or I don't remember how it came up, but then she was pointing out how Andy Warhol was influenced by that. And maybe we saw that when we were looking at this, I don't know, but I'm like, yeah, that is obviously where he got that from. So then I was like, what's the deal with Andy Warhol anyway? Because the reason why it seems significant is it's like he took, I was just thinking like, okay, his weird art style somehow became the thing that everybody used in marketing. It like influenced the way people did marketing, even though it was supposed to be a commentary on marketing. I don't know. So I just thought it'd be interesting to look into it. His practice spanned various movements. A leading figure in the pop art movement, his work explores the relationship between advertising, consumerism, mass media, and celebrity culture. He began his work as a commercial artist. Among his best-known early works are Campbell's Soup Can. That's hilarious. It's just all the different flavors of Campbell's soup. And then that becomes art. It's just so weird. I wonder if it talks about if that's influenced by Wolfli or not. doesn't say. Was Andy Warhol influenced by Wolfli? There's no direct evidence of that. That's so weird. What a weird... Utilized images of Campbell's soup in his complex detailed... So it wasn't even just one thing? Anticipation of pop art. That's what I was thinking. It was almost like he predicted it or something. While Warhol used soup cans to comment on mass production and consumer culture, Wolfli, who was institutionalized for schizophrenia, mind you, incorporated these items as part of his own intensely subjective mythological world. So interesting. Oh, look, here's somebody maybe making the connection. Since its appearance, art brut has always been a controversial term that was primarily circulating in France. British art critic Roger Cardinal used the term outsider art in attempting to translate the French term l'art brut, which literally means raw art. In the 80s, a specific art market focusing on the kind of controversial creation in question emerged in Western Europe and North America, and expanded to the other economically developed regions of the world over a span of decades. This niche market, whose operational logic is the same as that of the mainstream art market, where private as well as public actors influence the perception of the works, is called outsider art market, and has brought about the popularization of the kind of controversial creation in question. Okay. It's really just giving a history of outsider art. On the other hand, similar to Cardinal's concerns in regard to outsider art, Baudrillard had criticized the pop art movement, arguing that if everything became art, art would not mean anything, it would simply disappear. He pointed out the decodification process of the market was far from being purely liberating, because capitalism was decodifying old meanings only in order to recodify them in terms of capital. As did Baudrillard, Deleuze and Guattari too argue that the market decodes all, especially what interrupts or slows down the flow of capital, only to recode all in terms of money. Yeah, so any kind of art that would get you to question things gets decoded and recoded into something that can make money. It's kind of like that example that we were talking about from capitalist realism, talking about the movie Wall-E, where it like literally is taking any kind of questioning of, I mean, actually that's kind of interesting, because Wall-E, the whole thing was that we turned the earth into a literal giant garbage dump and so the humans had to leave so the robots could put it all back nice and neat for them when they come back. Together with the solidified essential identities, the possible perceptions of the world that unsettle capital are decoded and recoded in terms of capital. Expectedly, the notion of outside cannot escape from this de-recodification to be brought into the market. Consequently, the outsider art market is even more paradoxical than an outsider art as addressed in Bourdieu's critique. So on the one hand, owing to the prolific definitions, the market undermines fairly the problematic claim on authenticity of the schizophrenic object. Whereas on the other hand, it reduces the schizophrenic object into a market category and recodes the free desiring production of the schizophrenic, which unsettles the mechanisms of the capitalistic coding of desire as market goods. It causes mystification and romanticization of outsiders for the sake of market profit, and overshadows the socio-political character of Art Brut as a schizophrenic object of schizophrenic desiring production that unsettles the profit-oriented capitalist logic. Schizophrenic object can refer to a mathematical object, now often called an ambimorphic object, that belongs to two categories simultaneously. Interesting. They actually have something called a schizophrenic object in math. This definition doesn't help us. As defined by Deleuze and Guattari, these objects represent desiring production, creating a rhizome-like structure that breaks from traditional form. Okay. Richard Greaves. It looks like a garbage dump. Garbage dump style. That's what I'm going to call this. You come over to visit. Oh man, what happened to your house? Like, what do you mean? I built it like that. That's crazy. Literally. It's important too that you don't mow the grass. Yeah, if you mowed the grass, that would kind of take away from the effect. There's like a bicycle on top of the house. Is this when they were building it? Jeez. For some time now, we have known that Richard Greaves has turned away from his fabulous fantasy architecture. Improvised constructions created from assemblages of lumber and materials collected from the demolition of nearby barns or homes. Yeah, seriously. It's a good way to lower your property taxes. Turned his back on city life of Montreal and moved out to Beauce County. Untrained in architecture, he never sketched his plans. I could have guessed that. A spiritual and aesthetic cousin to Clarence Schmidt's House of Mirrors. What is that? Jeez. Look at that thing. House of Mirrors. More like House of Windows, am I right? What do you think the energy efficiency is like in that place? That's what happens when you go to Lowe's and you're like, honey, you don't understand. I got a great deal on Windows. Destroyed. Oh, so is this the before or after? Wow. Seven stories. Man, I never even heard of any of this stuff. That's crazy. My houses aren't twisted. They are deliberately asymmetrical. They are strong because they have angles that you can't make with nails. A nail is fixed. It stops the evolution. But a rope is patient. It can contort itself. Rope makes it possible to structure a building without hurting it, without assaulting it. With rope, it's great because it still moves. That's the one thing I don't want with my walls. I don't want them to move. But I appreciate the aesthetic. Nature always asserts its rights. Oh, I mean, I guess kind of practical, you know. It's going to shift. Interesting. The building... Okay, for each building, I start by making the toilet. Practical. And then I make the house around it, as if I were already aware of the importance of our remains, our emissions. The building is like my body, and my emissions are there. Hopefully he starts with the plumbing first. Art is man added to nature. Interesting. Nature always asserts its rights, and he was conscious that his buildings were temporary incursions. His approach combined a belief in the organic growth and the inevitable decline of his constructions. He's like, they're going to fall apart anyways. An architect. Interesting. This is cool. In computer science, why does it have this weird formatting on the... Why did they put that parentheses there? Oh, that's not what I want. Hold on. Go to... There we go. Oh, it does have a... Okay. Object schizophrenia, or self-schizophrenia, is a complication arising from delegation and related techniques in object-oriented programming where this can refer to more than one object. By way of metaphor with the public confusion of dissociative identity disorder with the psychiatric diagnosis of schizophrenia, this configuration is called object schizophrenia or self-schizophrenia. What is the value of self when evaluating a method on object A, which is delegated to a method on object B? The identity is split. It can refer to A or B. Interesting. Schizophrenic object. Do they just mean something a schizophrenic person made? Heinrich Otton Muller. The hell? What? Look, what's that on top? A rat? A rat on top of the head? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Eating grapes? What's going on, guys? The universe is sending us a sign. Don't eat with a rat on your head, or the snake will bite. It's the Garden of Eden. It's the Garden of Eden. The snake is there. The rat is on top of the head. The child is in the womb, and the mother is giving a little tiny batch of grapes to the child. And that was it? You gotta give us more than that. Whoa. Again with the snake. No rats this time, though. Lots of bugs, signifying he might be in a dump. It is possible. Another rat. What's his name? Henrik Anton Muller. This one is called Taking My Children to the Dump. Interesting. Oh. Some kind of machine. Okay. Heinrich Müller. Well, there wasn't much on Wikipedia. Let's see, where were we? Oh, I just saw it from that. My life story from the past? Huh. What is this document? Like much of the brilliance created by humankind, it is often the result of a unique chemical imbalance, so complex that we are far from completing the map. Over the centuries, there have been many artists, writers, and mathematicians with schizophrenia. High intelligence and creativity often accompany mental disorders, and schizophrenia is no exception. John Nash once said, "I would dare not to say that there is a direct relation between mathematics and madness. There is no doubt that great mathematicians suffer from maniacal characteristics, delirium, and symptoms of schizophrenia." Interesting. There are struggling artists who need to work and live and create work secondarily. Between the ages of 18 to 25, who've been diagnosed with schizophrenia lose their ability to create great art because their antipsychotic drug treatment thwarts their creativity and inspiration. Antipsychotic drug olanzapine, Zyprexa, never heard of it. Antipsychotic, primarily used to treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Common side effects include voices in the head, yeah, clozapine. I've heard of that one. Drug or agents that increase the activity of the enzyme CYP1A2, notably tobacco smoke. Oh, interactions. Okay. Olanzapine has been used as a hallucinogen antidote to block the effects of serotonergic psychedelics like psilocybin and LSD. Interesting. Trip killers. Never heard of that. Huh. That's interesting. That's really interesting that it would also do that too. It's also weird too because right now they're trying to like legalize or push through the FDA process so people can get prescribed psychedelics like mushrooms and ketamine. Early psychosis approach for schizophrenia. Prodromal schizophrenia. Prodromal stage. People who go on to develop schizophrenia commonly experience non-specific negative symptoms such as depression, anxiety, and social isolation. This is often followed by the emergence of attenuated positive symptoms such as problems with communication, perception, and unusual thoughts. Closer to the onset of psychosis, people often exhibit more serious symptoms like pre-delusional unusual thoughts, pre-hallucinatory perceptual abnormalities, or pre-thought disordered speech disturbances. We haven't really talked much about bipolar disorder on the streams. We talked a little bit. Previously known as manic depression. It's a mental disorder characterized by periods of depression and abnormally elevated mood lasting days to weeks and in some cases months. If the elevated mood is severe or associated with psychosis, it's called mania. What do they mean by psychosis then? The inability to distinguish what is real or not real. See, but again, like, how do you define that when nobody knows what's real and what's not real? I mean, it's so it's like you have 1 billion people, well, more than 1 billion people walking around saying they talk to God or they believe in God. You can't. Is it real? How do you know? How do you know what's real? So it's who gets to decide what's real, what's not real? Do the psychiatrists get to decide? Do they know what's real? Are there any psychiatrists who believe in God? So can they say they know what's real? Schizoaffective disorder. Characterized by symptoms of both schizophrenia and mood disorder. Interesting. Psychosis is not well understood at the neurological level, but dopamine, along with other transmitters, is known to play an important role. In the United States, about 3% of people develop psychosis at some point in their lives. Psychosis has been described as early as the 4th century BEC by Hippocrates, and possibly as early as 1500 BCE in the Ebers Papyrus. Up to 15% of the general population may experience auditory hallucinations, though not all are due to psychosis. The prevalence of auditory hallucinations in patients with schizophrenia is generally put around 70%. Reported prevalence in bipolar ranges between 11 to 68%. During the early 20th century, auditory hallucinations were second to visual in frequency, but they are now the most common manifestation of schizophrenia, although rates vary between cultures and religions. So-called minor hallucinations, such as extracampine hallucinations, or false perceptions of people or movement occurring outside of one's visual field, frequently occur. What is extracampine? Rare and distinct from sensory experience where an individual perceives a sensation, such as a presence, movement, or voice outside the normal range of sensory perception. Okay. Delusion is a fixed, false, idiosyncratic belief, which does not change even when presented with incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. Delusions are context and culture dependent. Since normative views may contradict available evidence, a belief need not contravene cultural standards in order to be considered delusional. However, the DSM-5 considers a belief delusional only if it is not widely accepted within a culture or subcultural context. That's it. If enough people accept it, then it's not delusional. That's interesting. So this guy was delusional because not enough people accepted his delusion. Yeah, they said it. They actually said it. It makes me think, I had this thing pulled up. Israel is building tiny robots inside your body. Researchers at the Technion have developed DNA origami nanorobots, programmable microscopic machines made entirely from DNA. These tiny robots navigate through the bloodstream, detect specific cancer cell markers, and then deploy a targeted toxin directly into tumors while completely sparing healthy cells. Shall we look at the comments? Try boycotting that. This will start many conspiracy theory from the usual suspects. Mossad is watching all our enemies from the inside. Why the hell is that thing constructing a DNA polymer in a blood vessel? What the fuck is that talking about? These nanobots must be weaponized to target terrorists and tyrants. The asymmetrical weapon that the enemy cannot see, let alone fight, is the future of warfare and will prevent incidental harm to civilians and infrastructure. If this was even remotely true, then we all know where the tiny robots would go first to genocide a population with a strange new disease like nobody has ever seen before. Jesus. This should be held back from all anti-Semite scum. You want to protest against us but want our life-saving technology? Yes, Israelis leading the way here. It's all like Chinese people. That's interesting. White phosphorus, baby. Make them target jihadi DNA and destroy it. It reinforces why approximately 25% of the Nobel Prizes in science go to Jews, who are 2% of the population. What does any group add to humanity? I don't think humanity's ready for this, guys. It looked kind of cool, but blasting your DNA. Like, why does it have arms? Whee! It's just some clickbait bullshit. But anyways, when I saw that, I was thinking about that, since that whole thing with schizophrenics, how they're like, believe that like something's controlling their body or something, and you know, that's what this guy was talking about. He thought his psychiatrist was like controlling him. Delusions of control. Except the cookies. The existence of a free will is fiercely debated in neuroscience and philosophy. The debate has great impact on society and our self-understanding as human beings. Behavioral and electrophysiological data have challenged the intuitive assumption that human behavior is a result of conscious intentions. This notion has important implications for delusions of control and schizophrenia, where patients experience bodily movements as not being controlled by themselves. And they're like, they might be right. Current theories explain control delusions as a deficit to perceive certain aspects of motor control, but many findings are inconsistent with this idea. Here, an alternative view is proposed. Control delusions might be triggered by an even more veridical perception of the temporal order of intentions and actions. What are they saying? That we don't have actual control? This hypothesis is supported by evidence that conscious intentions in healthy subjects are often based on retrospective inferences. Temporal recalibrations of conscious percepts occur in healthy subjects and are disturbed in schizophrenia. And basic perceptual functions of schizophrenic patients are less influenced by expectations, and therefore they can sometimes be closer to physical reality than those of healthy subjects. So in other words, when we observe someone reaching out for a pencil, we assume that he must have wanted it. When we see someone crying, we infer that she must be sad. When someone helps us without expecting a reward, we are likely to conclude that this person is inherently helpful. For all the actions and behaviors we observe in other people, we infer the existence of corresponding intentions or emotional states which have caused these actions. The notion that actions might not be preceded by corresponding intentions bears a striking resemblance to delusions of control, which are frequently reported by patients suffering from schizophrenia. Yeah, it's like they're the ones that actually are seeing what's going on. In recent years, a great deal of evidence confirmed that the perceived time of sensory events can deviate from their actual occurrence. These perceptual shifts in time highly depend on prior expectations of sensory events. Interesting. We present a novel temporal illusion in which the perceived order of events is dictated by their perceived causal relationship. Imagine watching a long line of dominoes falling one after another. Apparently, each domino's fall causes the fall of the next one in the line. But suddenly, one domino falls early, before being touched by the previous domino. Would you notice that the domino had fallen prematurely? Whether or not causal impressions can influence the experienced temporal order depends on two questions. Can the perception of temporal order be influenced by information other than the order of the percepts themselves? And do casual impressions possess those features necessary to influence presumably lower level percepts? According to mirroring theory, the order of our experience mirrors or inherits the temporal structure of the environment. The prior entry effect, the finding that attended stimuli are perceived earlier than unattended ones. When two successive bimodal stimuli are assumed to originate from the same source, the perceived timing of each stimulus is shifted so that the two events are experienced as being simultaneous. Unlike the domino example, however, the order here is collapsed rather than reversed. Prior entry effect. I don't want to do PBS, it'll just do a copyright thing. What could I look up on that? It's not quite what I'm looking for. Santa Fe Institute. That will definitely have what I'm looking for. What is this? I feel like I might have seen this before.
Rules of interaction. You can forget about the gradient of V, you still get really complex behavior. You can forget about diffusion, you still get really complex behavior just from the interactions between particles. You can specify.
No, that's not what I'm looking for, obviously. Wait. Totality of relations existing in everything? No. Maximum speed of natural now. This is a really good channel, by the way. They have a lot of really cool stuff. Whoa. Beyond prediction, algorithmic proof of guilt or innocence in criminal trials? What the hell? I know I saw something. I'm pretty sure it was on this channel. They were talking about that whole point of like people experiencing a choice and whether they actually experience making the choice before or after the event occurs in their nervous system. But I don't. What is feminist data science? I don't know. Alien crash site? I don't think I'm going to find it. Everything's about the pandemic 5 years ago. I don't think I'm going to find what I'm looking for. But this looks interesting.
Well, let's begin. It's a real pleasure. Andrea Roth here. Is it Andrea or Andrea?
Oh, I'd say, hi, I'm Andrea, like mitochondria. But, yeah. All right.
So, after I invited...
Let's get to it.
And it's not that I'm not interested in it, and in fact, I've done a bit of work in it. So anything we want to talk about that way is wonderful. But I want to tell you a little bit about the trial stuff, what's going on with respect to proof at trial, and see what your thoughts are when I tell you what the dilemmas are that the legal system is facing. Okay. So I guess I will define the problem for you. You know, what's the point of this? Isn't this working perfectly? And I'll do it in a few steps, and then we'll go through each step. So machine-generated conveyances of information. I call it machine testimony in that article, but of course, testimony to a lot of philosophers and lawyers means something very specific, and an assertion is something that has to be intended by a human, and it's a very fraught term. So some epistemologists, when they're talking about machines, they talk about machine conveyances of information, and so that's why I'm using that word. But feel free to call it machine claims, machine assertions, machine testimony. They're routinely used already in criminal trials, okay? And not just by the government, but by defendants as well. Many are decently opaque processes, some of which are not meaningfully scrutinized and may be inaccurate or overvalued by the jury. Existing legal rules that we have for regulating.
Are they saying this is already occurring? Maybe she'll get to that, but like, what the hell?
Assertions or conveyances of information are generally made for human witnesses, not machines, and with a few exceptions. And so I'll sort of show you the gaps in existing law and why judges and legal scholars and the advisory committee on the rules of evidence are starting to say, yikes, what do we do? And I'll show you a little bit about what's happening at the actual rules drafting stage, because I think we need your help. This is an all hands on deck situation. So
are you saying
yeah.
Like there's no cross-examination of machine-generated conveyances?
Yes and no. So for those on Zoom, for the person on Zoom there, you know, is there no cross-examination of machine conveyances of information? When a machine conveyance, let's say a software result, is used by a human expert to draw a conclusion in front of the jury. So for example, this probabilistic genotyping software interpreted this DNA mixture, says, you know, throws out a likelihood ratio, and then you have a human expert say, and that's why I think this guy is a contributor to the mixture. And sometimes you also have the actual proprietor of the program, you know, somebody who created the program who's actually on the witness stand. So it's not that the entire process is necessarily devoid of cross-examination. You could be cross-examining a human witness who used the software as their method for determining their conclusion. And sometimes you're also being able to cross-examine the person who wrote the program, or who at least developed the program. So in a very high level, you can ask questions about, well, how does this work, and all of that. What you don't have is a lot of the nitty-gritty information about how the program works. And there's no real testing requirements like IEEE. The elevator in a building is subject to more testing than the algorithms that are being.
It'd be like if ChatGPT said something and that was used to prove something, and then you get Sam Altman or the person who wrote the prompt to explain themselves or explain what's going on, but they can't tell you how ChatGPT came up with that response. So cross-examining the person who wrote the program or made the technology, like it says here, they're black boxes. They don't even know how it came to that conclusion. You're not able to analyze the flow of information that led to the decision.
Being used to create this output at trial. So yes, there's cross-examination. I would say no, there is not the equivalent of the type of information about the process that you would really be able to get out of cross-examination of a human witness. And I think there are ways to remedy that are not cross-examination. Yeah. Yes.
It is changing all the time, but can you give us some examples of like the types of information?
In fact, what a lovely segue to prove to me what's going on. So some of these, and I don't mean to suggest that each one of these is problematic. I'm only pointing out what's out there. And in fact, it's important, I think, to see the things that are and aren't potentially problematic or likely to be biased in particular ways or inaccurate in particular ways, because one of the things that I think the advisory committee on the rules of evidence is worried about is, look, we want there to be more scrutiny of things that need to be scrutinized, but we don't want every single Excel spreadsheet to somehow be inadmissible. So, okay. So you see, what's that?
On the photograph on the iPad.
Exactly. If it truly is every machine process that now somehow has to be subject to a higher level of scrutiny, is this going to just shut down trials as we know it? So that's their worry. So we've got driving estimates. If you have an alibi, well, it would have taken you way longer than that to get to the place where you're claiming. There's a Ninth Circuit case dealing with Google Earth estimates. Somebody who was charged with illegal reentry into the country said, actually, I was arrested in Mexico, not in the United States. And so, that Google Earth algorithm that claims that, that little place where the agents got me is in the United States, well, that's just a false mapping based on the GPS coordinates that were put into it. It actually was, 100 feet that way in Mexico, which would actually make me not guilty of the crime. And so one of the Ninth Circuit judges said, look, you may be right, I don't know, but this is all of the arguments that you're making about this don't apply to machines. This isn't something called hearsay. You don't have a right of confrontation. It's a machine. And so we just don't have a lot of rules for machines. So unless you show me a rule of evidence, it's coming in. Okay. Fitbit data has been used in one case.
Wow. That's interesting. It's like basically saying like the machine's making a mistake. It's telling you something that's not correct. And they're like, well, we don't have any rules in the legal system for, objecting to the conclusion a machine came to. So what can I do? That's crazy.
Case to show that somebody who claimed that they were sexually assaulted while awake
By a Fitbit?
was actually asleep at the time. And so the algorithm is being used to draw that inference. Facial recognition technology, which I think you're probably more familiar with because it's just been publicized.
Wait.
Concerns about it, especially the
What?
Senate.
The Fitbit. Okay, whatever.
Competitiveness of the data sets, of the training data. But I don't know if everybody realizes it's not just used in criminal investigations now. It's actually used very infrequently, but I think that will be changing. It's used as evidence of guilt at trial as well. Like, you are the person who robbed that store. That's you on the video. Breath alcohol, intoxilizer results and such, they're all computerized at this point, and there have been some concerns. The source code has been turned over to panels of experts, and they've found various problems, misassumptions, and coding errors that they say could lead to a false positive. That is not my area of expertise. I'm just pointing out that that is something that's been litigated. This is a typical match score, as it were, that would come out of like a probabilistic genotyping software result in a case where somebody is alleged to be part of a DNA mixture. A match between the beer bottle and the defendant is 471 million times more probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated black person. That's something typical that a jury will hear in a case, and this comes from one of typically two programs that are competing against each other and have sued each other. Okay.
Right.
There was a case in D.C.
I don't understand that. Does that mean match between the beer bottle and so is 471 million times more probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated black person? I mean, I don't have the context to know what that specifically means. I don't know if that means in general. So it's less likely to be coincidence if they're black? Or is it because the person was black? I don't know. It's weird.
Each other and have sued each other. Okay. There was a case in D.C. where an Israeli computer scientist, Oren Zur, was a consulting expert, and allegedly the defendant in this homicide case had confessed to the killing on Twitter. And his argument was that I didn't write that tweet. And so the defense got a computer scientist to take essentially three sets of tweets, one written by the defendant, one group written by, I think, his girlfriend who had access to the Twitter account, and then a friend who had access to the Twitter account. And then he trained three classifier algorithms on all of this and said that all three made clear that this was not written by the defendant. And the case settled before trial, and so this wasn't litigated. It's not like
Wow.
a transcript of his testimony. But there was nothing to say that next week the government couldn't present evidence like this to say, actually, you did author that tweet, and to present it as evidence of guilt or, obviously, here, alleged innocence. There was a case in Washington, the state of Washington, which I'll show you later, related to the use of Topaz Labs' AI enhancement of video technology, where they take a cell phone video of a fight, and the defendant says it actually, if it were enhanced, you could see that the other person had a gun, right, and it would make sense that I would have seen the gun right before I shot them and shot the bystanders. So this would buttress the defendant's self-defense claim. And a court earlier in the summer said, no, this is not generally accepted technology in the scientific community, so no, you don't get to present your AI.
Yeah, because when you AI enhance it, it adds artifacts. Like, I kept seeing that recently when there was that that whole thing at the White House Press Correspondence Center, and people were showing like videos of the defendant, and like, they're, look at all these weird things. Why is this happening? It must be fake, you know, because like there's a guy holding a pizza box, and then the pizza box disappears all of a sudden, and it's like, yeah, that's because someone took the grainy security camera footage and enhanced it with AI, and AI added all these artifacts. So the thing is, even what you're seeing online sometimes, it's an AI version of something else, and so it's adding a bunch of information, but then you think that's the real thing.
Video. The lots of folks on community supervision, you know, the movement, the incarceration movement, as it's called, like to try to get combat mass incarceration, has some bias. This is more just on the horizon, things that where the technology, my understanding is exists, and it would be legally relevant, I would think. So diagnosing diseases and determining cause of death, that could easily be brought into a trial and could be important both for civil and criminal cases.
Jeez.
And brought in by the defendant or the government. Determining from a conversation whether someone's trying to lure or groom an underage victim, often there is a fight over intent with respect to these, you know, attempted solicitation of a minor kind of crimes. And so now you have LLMs that claim like this conversation is clearly a grooming conversation. Okay.
But why do you need a computer to do that? And even if you did, like, this is crazy. It's like, how do we then say like, yep, we trust it now? it's always right. Like, now we decide to trust it. And what if it's wrong? Like, it's crazy.
Determining which patients coming into a hospital have a high chance of dying within 30 days, which was one of the more morbid examples. But I think that would relate to malpractice, standards of care in medicine. You could easily have that coming into civil trials. Determining likely deception based on micro expressions and text. This has been around for a long time. My understanding is that with LLMs, just in the past 2 years, the idea is that we've become much better at text-based lie detection. I'm not saying that's true or false. You would know better than I would, but I do think that the typical reason for keeping out polygraph evidence, and in fact, New Mexico is a little bit of an outlier on this. They are much more willing to let in polygraph evidence than other states. Go figure. With stipulations of the parties and things like that. But in other states, even with the stipulation, they don't want anything to do with polygraph evidence. Here, I think the higher the so-called accuracy rate, which I know, like, what does that even mean? Are we talking about false positive rates, under what circumstances, all of that? But I think we'll get to a point where it will be easier for people to argue for these types of results to come in.
Damn.
Determining medical diagnosis or forensic conclusion from a doctor's unstructured notes, that could be if the criminal trials. I would say probabilistic genotyping software in cases involving DNA. Mostly familiar with is facial recognition. In Detroit, there were a couple of high-profile cases that made the news. Mr. Williams and Portia Woodruff. She was 8 months pregnant, and it was pretty clear when they showed up at her door, like, no, I'm not the person that committed this robbery. But both of them now have been cleared of any wrongdoing, but were both first accused of robbery based on facial recognition. This is the Topaz video case. Joshua Paloka, whose alias is Joshua Everybody Talks About, so I guess I'm talking about you, Joshua.
Removed information that was in the original images, and it added information that was not in the original. And they tried to use that. Dang. You could probably prompt it like 10 different times and get a different video every time.
Evidence more when it's offered by the defendant. But that's an empirical question. I'm just suggesting that there's a lot of what psychologists might call motivated cognition going on here about, I don't believe this person acted in self-defense, and therefore I don't want this enhanced AI video to come in and try to bamboozle the jurors into thinking that he acted in self-defense. One example from the probabilistic genotyping software context that was also somewhat high profile, I think there's even a Netflix documentary on this case now, is in upstate New York. There was a tragic killing of a 12-year-old boy, strangulation, and there were no suspects. And the boy's mother had 2 ex-boyfriends, one of whom had been accused several times of domestic assaults against her. And so he naturally became a suspect, but he had an alibi that police thought was airtight. And so they cleared him as a suspect. And so suspicion fell on Oral Hillary, who is the black man in the tie who was a soccer coach for a local college in Potsdam. And the problem was that there was no, for the government, was that there was no physical evidence linking him to the scene or anything. He didn't have an airtight alibi, but he did have an alibi. So they finally found a tiny bit of DNA under the boy's fingernails. That was a low quantity mixture. And it was too complicated for human analysts to deal with because of the low quantity and other things. And so they sent it to Mark Perlin, who's from Carnegie Mellon. He created this program called TrueAllele. It's been used in exoneration cases as well. It's been admitted everywhere. And TrueAllele looked at this mixture and spit out this likelihood ratio that said, no, he's not a contributor. And Mark Perlin later said, he's excluded. This program essentially excluded him as a contributor. So the case went cold, and a new DA was elected on the platform of finding this child's killer. And one of the things that the new DA did was send the same sample, same genotyping information. So nothing different about like, oh, half of the physical sample might have been different. Nothing like that. Same exact genetic information to the competing program, StarMix, which was created by John Buckleton in New Zealand. And StarMix came back with a highly damning likelihood ratio, saying I mean, this wasn't it, but it looks like that. And so, it is 300 million times more likely that you would see this mixture with the hypothesis that he is a contributor as compared to the hypothesis that this is two separate random people. Okay, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, if this means a black person in the United States, I mean, there aren't 471 million of them. So if you actually choose a random black person in the United States, they would be the suspects, this one over that. I mean, a priori, that number looks absurd.
Good point.
I always have computer scientists tell me this, or scientists in general, or for example, the random match probabilities in some of these cases.
It'd be like, it's like if you flipped a coin and you're like, I flipped it 5 times. The odds of that landing on heads was 1 trillion times. Well, actually, it's a terrible example. I can't think of an example. But yeah, that's a good point. How does that logically make sense if there aren't even that many black people in America? Well, I guess you got to consider all the black people in the world and the possibility that any one of them could have done it, I suppose. And the possibility that could have been a Hispanic person. Yeah, that is weird.
Cases are in the quadrillions or sextillions. And so, ooh, I'm sorry, screen sharing stopped.
Oh.
Your external monitor has disconnected. Give me just a second. Let me make sure.
This happens once every talk. I know.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Oh, share screen.
Anyway.
Let me see. So,
that's like, if you chose a random object on the planet Earth, living or dead, then you might get you might get a quadrillion.
Yeah. Yeah, the way that I've heard it described is also like the fact that you've even seen this genotype before means that these 1 in a sextillion numbers are absurd. This is what jurors are told every day. This is what jurors are told every day. And, their claim is that it's simply based on allelic frequency tables that the FBI has put together in terms of what alleles in which loci are known to occur in the population with, and then it used to be that the FBI only divided the population into African American, Caucasian, Southwest Hispanic, and East Hispanic, and that's it. So if you were of Asian descent, sorry,
you're off the hook,
or anything else. And they now have different other.
What if you're reptilian?
In their database, but this is all based on the FBI's allelic frequency tables. So that's where they're getting all of these numbers. And my apologies.
Wait, it's Mazarine. We're not seeing slides.
Yes, we are about to switch that.
Okay, Boomer, we know.
Thank you. So the benefit of the other test, then the jurograms that have both been deemed he's not guilty, and saying, so the issue with this case, the trial court excluded the inculpatory DNA evidence from the second program, saying that the New York lab that did this didn't do enough internal validation within the lab to make sure that they knew how to do the software. So it didn't end up coming in a trial, and he was acquitted. That doesn't mean that he's not guilty. And the documentary was post-acquittal, all of this. But the rest of the legal community was saying, how could you have these two programs that have both been deemed sufficiently reliable to be admissible in all 50 states and in jurisdictions around the world that came to such diametrically opposed results on the exact same genetic information? And so that was the concern was, if you didn't have the benefit of the other test, then the jury would just be given this 300 million number, and that would be the end of it. And that would be the end of it. So thanks a lot, Scott. Okay, so after that, NIST, and I should say just very quickly on NIST, it really is the one government agency that I think the defense and the prosecution community in criminal cases both respect. If the Department of Justice were doing this study, I think there would be concern about prosecutorial bias and all of this. NIST really, so far, has been seen as a neutral body where a lot of this forensic testing or whatever we're going to do if we need a neutral body for something, then it should be NIST. And there seems to be some consensus on that, at least in the legal community. So John Butler, who's the first noted author there, is sort of seen as the DNA guy in the legal community. Anything he says, people on both sides respect. He's highly respected. So this was a study of mixture interpretation in DNA in 2021, but it was also a study of these expert systems. And here are just two quotes from this study, just to give you a sense of what the scientific community is saying. On the question, are currently used PGS probabilistic genotyping software programs systems reliable? The answer is it depends. It depends on the region of what they call the factor space for the K-sample of interest in coverage with available ground truth data for assessing reliability. So how many contributors are there to the mixture? What is the quantity of DNA? How many genetic markers or alleles do these people share? Because the higher degree of allelic sharing, is there peak height imbalance, all of that. Yeah. What's the ratio of contributions? All of those things, they say, create a factor space. And it might be that the validation studies that the proprietor of the software use only test this over here. Contributors of 3 or fewer, 3 or fewer contributors where there isn't a whole lot of peak height imbalance, where it's a decently high quantity. And so the question is, well, how can we know what this program is doing with this guy's case where there's 4 contributors, or this guy's case where there's a low copy number, or this guy's case where there is a lot of allele sharing because they're relatives, and the murder, the bloody T-shirt was found in a laundry basket or something like that. Okay, and they say one of the key takeaways is additional PGS validation studies have been published. However, publicly available information continues to lack sufficient details needed to independently assess reliability of specific likelihood ratio values produced by these systems. Just to give you a sense, at Berkeley, okay, great. So just to give you a sense, at Berkeley, we, a couple of my colleagues in the law school have been working with some folks in the computer science department to try to get a license from these 2 programs, just to do some independent audits. For it codifies something called the Daubert case by the Supreme Court that essentially says expert testimony has to be reliable and a judge has to decide the reliability. So the witness has to be qualified. It has to be.
The judge, how would they even understand any of this stuff, man? It's crazy. Quite interesting. Okay, one more thing before I go tonight. Kind of random, but I saw this earlier today, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought I would share it with you guys. You remember when we talked about spoon bending, right? And we were making fun of it, and we read through like Uri Geller's CIA experiments, and then we watched all these debunking videos about spoon bending. Well, I found this video. It kind of just came up on my algorithm, and 9 years old, and this woman is into spoon bending and other things, but it's very interesting. Like, her perspective on it was quite interesting. It gave me like another perspective on the whole spoon bending thing. So I'll just play this. I thought it was kind of cool. You guys tell me what you think about it. Put it in the comments or in the chat after we watch.
Hey folks, Miche here, spoon bender and life coach. I thought it might be fun today, rather than do a whole long demonstration or discussion, to just do a quick demonstration of bending some spoons. So hopefully I'm gonna do a few just like that, and don't be intimidated. I've been bending spoons for a while. I've bent several dozen at least, and I mean, don't limit yourself. You might be able to just do it just in a moment. Some people can, and don't be discouraged if it takes longer, right? So I've got literally a bag of spoons, and first I'm just going to show you some of the ones that I have done in the past. This is kind of the first step in spoon bending, and even for some, not even getting that much of a bend, but just a little dip. All right, I said I wasn't going to talk a lot, so I'm going to try to honor that. Okay, so here's a spoon, fairly thick. I don't pick really skimpy ones. I always test them before I buy them at Goodwill or whatever, so that I know when I bend it, it's the real deal. Okay. So obviously, I think there was some force involved, but when I'm not in the moment, even just that quick moment, I cannot bend it. So there's one.
That's pretty interesting.
Right.
And I think what's interesting is I watched a couple of her videos, is that she's pretty honest to, like, she's like, okay, look, I'm going to bend it using force now. And it's like, you know, I can bend it this much and I can twist it a little bit, right? And then I watched another guy's video too, talking about this point versus like when they actually do it. And I don't know, man, it kind of reduced my skepticism a little bit watching some of this. I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this.
Right. There's one a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker.
That looks pretty thick. And it's funny too, because that night we were joking about spoon bending, or we were watching those videos. When I went back to the house, I was joking around with the kids, and I thought it was going to be really easy to do, because you watched all those Uri Geller and then like the debunking and how they did it very easily and everything. It was not easy to do, and I also didn't really want to bend up a bunch of my spoons. But you know, if you have a nice, decent quality, thick spoon, like you can't just go like this. Like, it's not that easy to do. So there was something about that was just kind of, there's more to it maybe than what it seems on the surface. It is possible to do it in the trick way as well. And the point she was making about, like, okay, I did use some force. Like, she's like not claiming it's all with her mind and it's just bending with only her mind. She's like, no, I'm bending it with my hands. But maybe I'll give some more context in a second. I want to watch this.
Let's see where I can get with that one. And I'm just centering for a moment. I'm going to a place that's become familiar now because I've bent so many spoons that I can just get into that zone almost right away. All right. As far as I got on that one, I distracted myself. Let's see if I can do a little more, maybe get some of that twirling effect on that one. Seeing it in my mind's eye as something already done, and that allows me to take it a little further. Okay.
I mean, look at the curl on that. So it's interesting to me because it almost makes it seem more believable that she's not claiming to just do it only with her mind, like as if it's just I don't know what it is. It's like, it's almost like a bit more honest about it. But I mean, look at that. Try to do that yourself. Try to take a spoon and with brute force bend it into a tight little curl like that. Like, that's pretty crazy. Look at that again. And it doesn't look like she's straining very much at all.
To take it a little further.
Hold on.
As something already done. And that allows me to take it a little further.
I mean, maybe she's just using force, but damn.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. I would love to walk you through how to do that. I would love to be able to teach you and coach you even further beyond that, and help you see how to take other difficult, seemingly too hard to do things in your life and apply a different perspective and mindset and actually manage to accomplish things with ease.
Okay, I'm gonna look up one more. Hey, Gaitan, see you in the chat. Because I just thought her perspective on it was quite interesting. Let me see if I can find the other one. Okay, it's this one, I think.
One of the tools, one of the benefits of bending a spoon is that when you first pick up your spoon and think, okay, here I am, I'm going to bend it. If you pause for a moment, you're probably going to hear what that running monologue is telling you that you may normally not even be aware of. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, the running monologue that most of us have is that it's negative. It's telling us stories mostly about how hard something is going to be or how incapable we are, rather than telling us stories about what great capacity we have and what is possible. So even while we're going to have an intention, I'm also going to suggest that you have to let go of the outcome. You have to not, clutch to what you think should happen or is going to happen or will or won't happen. And it's about really allowing the love that we are, the love that energy is. Everything is energy. Energy is love. cooperation and collaboration. And so rather than try to beat the spoon into a new shape, we're actually going to, let's say we're going to love and respect the spoon and ourselves into creating something else. And that our body and our spoon, holding a spoon, we're actually making a circuit of energy. And you can imagine the energy running out your arms. You could see it in your mind, perhaps, white light. Feel the energy. Maybe it feels a little buzzy or tingly. And as you're feeling it through the spoon. At some point, you may not even be certain where your fingers are and where the spoon is, which ends where. I'm going to see. It doesn't always work. There, did not work. I just continue. Just take a breath and allow and not go into, oh, I have to do it, I have to try, which is what we tend to do in our business, right? When we have to get a task done, it's like, I have to wrangle this, I have to steer it, I have to rope it into submission. And instead, what if we approach it as something that's possible, as something that we wonder how is going to happen? And then, in that same moment, we apply ourselves, we apply our strength and our capacity.
See, that is kind of interesting. I mean, some of the stuff she's saying is also pretty common sense, but if you look at the spoon, where she bent it is not at the weak point, where the metal meets the bowl part of the spoon, because that's the part where, when you look at the debunking videos, that's where they do it at. They just, in that moment, apply the pressure there, right?
Our energetic being and mindset, and in that moment, you can have something else occur.
Look at that one. Holy shit. What the hell? That looks like that would be very difficult to do just with brute force. Wow. Wow. Interesting. There was one more I saw. Hold on, let me see. I probably have it up here somewhere. Where is that one? Give me 1 second. This one. That was kind of interesting too. Let me see here.
Namaste. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Trevor Seven.
Did he just say namaste?
And I want to...
Whoa. Talk about weird coincidences. Look at his shirt. Do you guys see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? Look again. Do you see it? Do you see it? Sherwin-Williams. Sherwin-Williams. It always comes full circle, guys. Sometimes in the most unexpected ways. Let me see who's messaging me. Oh boy. Guys. Was it easy to do, Gaitan? Oh man, that's funny.
Do a little demonstration and talk about spoon bending for a little bit. Spoon bending is just another form of psychokinesis, and there are several different manners you can go about doing this. If you're really good at this, which I'm just kind of getting into it right now, if you're really good at this, you can do it with just your mind only. And unfortunately, that's not the demonstration that I'm going to be showing for you today, but I wanted to talk to you about spoon bending because it's something we can all do, and and prove to yourself firsthand that this stuff is real. Now,
Gaitan. Did you channel your energy into it, or did you actually just brute force it?
Of course, you don't want to be bending the spoons out of your own cupboard, or at least not too many of them. But actually, the first time you spoon bend, it is good to use a spoon that you've held and had in your possession for a long time. It's easier. But for practice purposes, I'm just buying these cheapos from like the Dollar General store, 3 for $1 or something. And they're fairly thin, as you can see. They are stainless steel, and just using brute force, you can't do what you can do whenever you put your energy into the spoon and use PK, psychokinesis, to bend the spoon. Now, I want to show you, first of all, I'm just going to take the spoon right now and try to do what I normally do when I'm spoon bending, just using brute force to see what results I can get. Okay, as you can see, I can turn it, but it took a lot of strength. I don't know if you can hear my knuckles popping and everything. It kind of hurts your hand a little bit and stuff, but you can bend it, but you can't get a tight loop. Well, it's really hard to get on camera there, but you can't get a really tight loop. It's really wide. You can see how wide that gap is. Now, whenever you put some energy into it, it loosens up quite a bit and gets warmer, and it's all about timing. And sometimes it might take 30 seconds to get your energy into the spoon and get everything warmed up and feeling like it's ready. And it's just, there's just a split second that it works, and it just turns, I'm not saying it turns to butter, but pretty darn soft. I mean, it doesn't take much force. You can just twist it right around. And I had a heck of a time trying to do it on camera because I'm thinking about other stuff. And what you really have to do is just focus on energy flowing through you and through the spoon, and then just relax and don't think about bending and don't think about anything. Really just let the energy flow in through out this hand and into your other hand through the spoon, back and forth, and there'll be like a sense of knowing, and you'll just feel it starting to get soft. And that's when you just need to kind of snap yourself out of the trance, bend it straight down. So when you're holding your spoon like this, bend it straight down, and then just start twisting. And you'll feel it'll start stiffening up towards the end when the metal's no longer soft. And that's when you're done. Don't just keep forcing or anything. Just let it do it. Like I said, it's just a little 2 or 3, maybe even a 2-second window there that it actually works. So I was going to show you some of my spoons. These are a couple fails. This is how far you usually get if it's not working. And you can see I didn't get much out of that. That's my first attempt on camera. This was my second attempt on camera. No go, lame-o. And then I've done, I don't know, I've probably done maybe 10 of these. But this was the very first spoon I ever bent. And of course, it wasn't done on camera, and it was straight out of my cupboard. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's considerably thicker than the spoons I'm demonstrating with. And look how tight that curl is. I mean, that's not something that can easily be done by hand, especially with a spoon of this caliber. It's a pretty heavy-duty spoon. Granted, it's still just a teaspoon, but it's a lot thicker. I'd say it's twice as thick as these other spoons I've been bending. Here's another single loop. You can see how tight that is. That's not something easily done.
That's a tight loop, guys.
I can't do it anyway. Another single loop. This one's got kind of a corkscrewing effect. I don't know if you can see that very good, which is darn near impossible with the hand, with brute strength. And here's a nice, interesting one, like a 1.5 twister. That'd be good for sipping soup. Okay, here's a 1, 2. This is a double, but man, is it tight. Look how tight those coils are.
Tight coil.
And that one, I remember doing that one. That felt pretty darn easy. I mean, hardly any strength at all required. And here's a double loop with a corkscrew end.
Dang.
And twisting metal like that, I mean, that's darn near impossible, even if it's heated up, or if you got, maybe if you got needle nose pliers and a vice grip or something and did it really carefully, you could do something like that. This is just a simple way you can prove to yourself
Jeez.
that everything is energy. And by focusing our intentions into any object or person, we can influence it. And there are a lot of different methods. I'm sure you probably heard of Uri Geller, and I've seen all these guys on YouTube that are showing how to do this and whatnot. And one way to tell if you're actually spoon bending or not, you'll see these guys or gals, some people, that are bending right here where the handle meets the bowl. And that's the weakest point of the spoon. So if they're doing it right there, and twisting around, that may or may not be spoon bending. But if you can find the balance point of the spoon, that's the beginning. That's where you want to curl, and that's where you want to focus your energy. And some people focus, like heat into it, and some people use white light, and some people just caress it and imagine it turning soft or getting hot and easy to bend. And some people do a lot of mind chatter where they say bend, 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 bend. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do this, guys. But the way I do it is I just kind of bring in energy through my crown chakra, and I envision it as white light. Use whatever color you want, but I feel the warmth in the white light run down my neck, my shoulders, and down my arms, and into my hands. And when it gets to my hands, I let it run into the spoon, into this hand, and then back out of this hand, into the spoon, and back into this hand, and just back and forth, until I feel the spoon starting to get weak. And like I said, there's just sort of a knowing about it, a sensing that, like a sixth sense that just kind of kicks in, that just says, hey, it's ready, you know, it's hot, it's warm, it's soft, it's ready to go. Or another method I used was setting a timer, just taking a small clock like this and setting a timer for about 3 minutes and just put energy into it. And sometimes that sudden distraction will, you know, give you the perfect opportunity to just stop and bend when you hear the timer. So it's just something you guys could try. And like I said, you know, don't bend up a bunch of your good spoons and stuff practicing. You might go to the store and buy you a 6-pack of spoons to practice. All right, happy spoon bending. It's Trevor 7, appreciate you watching. Good day.
I don't know, guys. Pretty interesting. What do you think? What was your experience like, Gaitan? Gaitan is sending me pictures of him bent spoons. Was it very hard to do? Like, was it hard to bend it, or was it just like he described? It's pretty good bend you got there. I don't know if your coils are quite as tight. I mean, it's definitely not at the weak part of the spoon. Did you brute force it at all, or was it just like he said, you just started bending it very easily? The way I would test it by getting another one, and then don't try to focus on it. Just try to brute force it and do it the same way and see if you can do the same. Interesting. $50-50. I mean, I have to admit, like, when we watched the Uri Geller stuff, I was like, that's pretty interesting. And then we watched all the debunking stuff, and I was like, it's just a scam. What was I going to look? Spoon bending trick. See, here's that guy again.
To say there's half a dozen different ways to bend a spoon. I suppose you could do it telekinetically using psychic power, but let's see if there's some other ways that we could do it. I mean, for starters, you just take a spoon and basically you get you stroke the neck of the spoon such that you allegedly heat up the atoms inside of it, and it causes it to bend. And if we stroke just like that, ever so gently, you can kind of see it starting to bend there. And we got a little bit of a bend. It's, you know, not dramatic. It's the kind of thing you could do at a restaurant fairly allegedly. Basically, you get other ways that we could do it. I mean, for starters, you just take a spoon and basically you get...
See, did he actually do anything, or did he already have it bent?
Take your thumb and bend it down, and then you've already prepped it. And that's pretty much how you bend a spoon. Forks are a little trickier. What we like to do is try to bend the tine of a fork, because it's a little dangerous, you know, because it's sharp. So what we want to do now, I need you to concentrate.
See, but his are already bent.
Concentrate on causing the left tine of the fork to bend. So just think bend, 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 bend. There it goes. It's starting to go. It's starting to go. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. I'm just kind of flicking it down. Just flicking the tine down. Look at that. There it is. It went. Do you see that?
See, but it's already
Look
bent.
At that.
It's just
now,
an
of course,
illusion.
You could do that telekinetically, but let's just say I'm just going to prep it. Just sort of think, just kind of think warm thoughts about it. Just sort of barely hang on to it there and stroke. Just stroke the neck of it and push ever so gently on the bowl of the spoon. You can kind of see it starting to get a little bit mushy. Can you see that? I'm hardly pushing it at all. I'm just barely touching it, just like that Israeli spoon bender used to do. And I can kind of feel it. Boy, the atoms are getting very warm there. And let's see if we can just make that thing just melt right in your fingers like that. Again, you could do this telekinetically, but maybe there's some other tricks up our sleeves there. Oh, there it goes. The genuine bent
See, but he
spoon.
already
Now, of course, you
bent
might say,
it.
well, Shermer, come on, that's cheap cutlery. So we're going to try to...
See, but these are all just illusions. Like, clearly, you can do it that way. You can pretend to bend it. So, that's not really explaining it. See, like, all of these, they're just bending it like that. You know? Like, okay, yeah, you can bend it like that. Okay, you can bend it like that. But that other lady, she wasn't doing that. Where was that video we had? Like, see what I mean? She's not like pretending to bend it. Like, oh, I'm doing a little trick here. Watch my hands. Watch my hands. She's literally just taking it and bending it around.
So obviously, I think there was some force involved, but when I'm not in the moment, even just that quick moment, I cannot bend it. So there's one. Right. There's one a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker. Let's see where.
Let's watch her work, guys. Here she goes. Oh.
Right. As far as I got on that one, I distracted myself. Let's see if I can do a little more, maybe get some of that twirling effect on that one. I'm seeing it in my mind's eye as something already done. And that allows me to take it a little further. Okay.
Do you think she just works out? I know, sorry, Sandro. Can be at Dollar General getting a 20-pack of spoons. I don't know, I'm like that pretty impressed. Like, this little lady just bent that like that. How much force did it take, Gaetan? Like, could you think she could do it that easily? It doesn't really look like she's straining very much. You could just learn where to apply the force. Yeah, so maybe it's just all a mental trick. It's like I've only done about 30 of these. I've practiced. Huh. I don't know. Spoon bending tight coil. I want the tight coils. That's what I'm looking for. Dang, this lady's bent up all her cutlery. 3 spoons in a row. Those look pretty weak, though. Spoon bending 101. Here we go.
Come on up to the spoons. Has anybody here ever bent a spoon before?
No, I have not.
Oh, what muscles to use? Yeah, exactly.
It's really easy. Look at the spoons and figure out which one appeals to you. And push it down your arms into that space between your hands.
Pray to your spoons.
Relax your hands, nice and loose. So if you don't feel anything, you just imagine or pretend, visualize. The energy as you breathe in goes up from the ground through you and around you. And as you breathe out, goes down your arms and into that space between your hands. Spoon is just energy. It just starts softening with your intention. And you're thinking soft, or you're thinking nothing, or you're thinking...
Oh, I gotta watch this video from Gaetan.
So I'm going to use force to do this one. But the first time I didn't use this much of force. So now I'm going to use force, okay? 3, 2, 1, go. So I used force. So I used more force.
Got some pretty good tight coil.
The first one.
So it is possible just by using force. So is it just like a mental trick that you're telling yourself you're not using force when you are? I should have a segment on the stream called Camera Cope Debunks.
thinking, I'm a superhero and I can do anything.
I can do anything except anything other than bending
Go ahead and bend your
spoons.
spoon. Wow.
Oh, here we go.
Like it's putting heat out itself into your hands. Or you get the idea in your head, it's time. Nice and relaxed and gentle. Breathing in, breathing out, putting the energy into the spoon. No, I think it's good. If everybody's good, you ready? Bend, 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 bend. Go ahead and bend your spoon.
Wow. That is so crazy. I'm freaked
Now try to bend it back. Feel how hard it is to try to bend it back. Kind of pull against it a little bit. Okay. Now, who would like to do a twisty turly?
Do it.
Curly one.
We need some tight coils.
That is okay. Another one. Okay. You can do a twisty. You're gonna curl it a little bit. So, about it a little bit. Again, everything here is do anything. Breathing.
You can do anything, guys. Just remember. No, it is not what.
Now, is it color? That's okay. Sure. Or in waves or in balls or whatever. Zoom. As long as it's going in out between your hands into that spoon area, that's perfect. Kind of visualize how it's going to spin for you. It's going to make a curl. So one more.
I couldn't do it. Yeah. I bent it, just not curly.
Good. Look at that. Did you get one? There you go.
I am freaked out. Like, stop. That looks amazing.
Woo!
Oh, did it? Ooh, awesome.
Awesome.
Unbelievable.
You can do anything, guys. Because it's so crazy. He's like, it's really not that crazy. Is it just a form of suggestion? Interesting. How to bend spoons. 30 minutes? No, lady. Come on. It's got to be in 2 minutes or less. Quantum spoon bending. Here we go.
All right, go ahead.
This is a thick spoon. It is hard to bend. We got it out of a drawer. We didn't go buy it real thin. There you go.
All right, thank you. Here you go. You're gonna just turn that around on me. All right.
I mean, he was flexing it with his hands. But... Okay. Here we go.
You want Molly out here to see you?
No, she can. Molly, you want to come see Mama do this? Okay.
It's like becoming trans.
Don't talk to me when I do this.
Remember, guys, you can do anything. Just praying. You can do it if you put your muscles to it.
So we got to give it a little bit of time. So I just want to talk a little bit about what happened in class today.
No, don't talk
It took
about
place
that.
In Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Don't talk about that.
Get a look at her face over there.
You can do anything. She's like, my mom's nuts.
I can't freaking bend it.
Really? But it wasn't bending earlier.
You can't bend it back.
You gotta show a picture of the thick ones you bent.
You can't bend it past here. Say you're impressed. Molly Francis, look at the camera and say you're impressed.
You could do anything, guys. Isn't it weird, though? It's like, if the lesson there is that you can literally do anything, okay, let's apply that to something that matters then. Let's apply it to something that matters. I do like the points that they said, though, about, that first woman was saying about, you have all this negative chatter that comes up in your mind. Like, oh, I can't do it. And it's more about cooperating with your reality. So, like, what if we actually looked at the system we live in, the reality we live in, and we were like, you know what? I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to apply myself within it and see if I can bend it in a way that's actually best. And whatever comes up as doubts, we just forgive that, let it go. So, like, why does it stop at spoon bending? That's the thing. If they're really realizing, like, I can do anything, why does it stop with bending a spoon? Like, you would take it to the biggest possible expression you could. Or is that all the mind can believe? It's like, well, I can bend a spoon. And see, now I'm special. I did something that no one else could do. No one thought they could do. And then maybe one day I'll do forks, but not yet. Not now. Time isn't right. When the time is right, the universe will tell me. For now, I'll just stick with spoons. Interesting. I won't see you guys tomorrow night. Podcast tomorrow morning. I'll be back on Monday, and I expect to see a lot of bent spoons. Or anything else. Yeah. Why just walk on water, Jesus? Seriously. He's like, look what I can do. Like, okay. Why don't you just like... No, I'm not going to say it. Yeah, speaking in tongues. Try speaking in spoons. Now that would be something. All right, guys, I'll see y'all on Monday. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow on the podcast. And in the meantime, bend those spoons, guys. Just not too many spoons, because you need some spoons to eat with. Just extraneous spoons. All right, see y'all tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Monday. See you Monday.